going to actually look at graphing more in detail. So at the top of page 20, you've got your parent graphs of sine and cosine. Remember, your parent graph is just the general graph. Everything is based off this parent graph. So when you actually graph sine, cosine, so forth, you need 5 points. You'll always have 5 points. With sine, you're going to have a beginning, a middle, and an end. And those 3 of your 5 points are going to be on your x-axis. So, for your parent graph of sine, you're going to start at 0, and you're going to end at 2 pi. That's all the way around the circle. Remember, this is the parent function, so it's all the way around. All right? To find your other 3 points, you're going to go in half. So right now you've got from 0 to 2 pi. If I cut 0 to 2 pi in half, that gives me pi. So there's my middle. So those 3 points are on that x-axis. The other 2 points are above and below. So now we're going to look at between 0 and pi. Halfway would be pi over 2. And that one goes up. Then you're going to look at between pi and 2 pi. That's 3 pi over 2. You're just looking at the half. That one's going to go down. So remember when we did the noodle activity, the general shape of sine is like that. It's kind of like a wave. There's where that comes from. So your parent graph of sine looks like that. Everything with sine will look in that general shape. Alright? Cosine, you still need 5 points. But this time you're going to start high and end high. So for your parent function, you're going to start at 0 like normal, and you're going to end at 2 pi. You're still going to go halfway. Everything's going to get cut in half. Halfway between 0 and 2 pi is pi. But this one is going to go below. Now we're looking between 0 and pi. You've got pi over 2. Halfway between pi and 2 pi is 3 pi over 2. So cosine looks like that. Looks kind of like a V. All right? We're going to skip the top of page 21 and go down to the bottom of page 21. All right, to actually graph sine and cosine, you're going to need to know the amplitude and the period. The amplitude is the highest and lowest point. The period is the length of one wave. So, we're talking about sine, that would be a wave. That would be a period from the start to the end of one chunk of the graph. So, for example, if you're given your parent function is sine, you're given the amplitude is 2 and the period is 2 pi. So, the amplitude tells us how high we go and how low. So that's here. We're going to go all the way up to 2. Period comes in for how long your graph is, and it goes to 2 pi. So from 0 to 2 pi. So then we're going to cut everything in half. And make our points. 3 on, 1 all the way up to our amplitude, and 1 down at our amplitude. So there's 1. The second one is still sine, but your amplitude has been reduced only to 1/2, but your period has gotten longer. So 4 pi would be about there. Halfway would be 2 pi. Halfway would be pi, and halfway would be 3 pi. Labeling your graph is important. And it only goes up to 1/2 and down to 1/2. So, remember the period tells you the length of one wave, ultimately where you start and stop your graph. Then we're going to cut it in half. Then we're going to cut it in half again, but we're going to go up to the amplitude, down to the amplitude. So you can see that the longer the period, the more stretched out your graph gets. The bigger the amplitude, the taller it gets. Alright? So to actually find the period amplitude, you use these formulas right here. So if you're given, at the top it says y equals a sine of bx and y equals a cosine of bx, where a and b are not zero. Your amplitude comes from the number in front. Okay, that's where that comes from. The period comes from anything in front of x. Alright, so number one, the amplitude, remember, comes from in front of the sine or the cosine. So your amplitude here is 2. The period is always under 2 pi, and it's whatever is in front of x. So in this case, the only thing in front of x is 4. Now, I can simplify 2 pi over 4 into 1/2 pi, or pi over 2. So that means that my graph would stop at pi over 2. All right, number 2. Amplitude is in front, so your amplitude is 1/3, which means it only goes up to 1/3 and down to -1/3. Period is anything in front of x, so this time you've got a 2 pi in front of x. So your formula is 2 pi over b. B in this case is 2 pi. And that can be simplified to 1. Make sure you simplify those periods. So that would mean that your graph goes to 1 and stops. That would be the length of one wave. Alright, number 3. Your amplitude is in the front, so 2. Period is 2 pi over b, which is 4. So pi over 2. Remember, simplify. Alright, so the height is at 2. And it stops at pi over 2. So my graph is stopping here. So that's the length of one wave. So now I've got to find all those other points. I only have 2, I got to have 5. So to do that, we're going to take the average. If I average up 0 to 1/2 pi, or just 1/2, if I average that up, I get 1/4. So in the middle, that's going to be pi over 4. Remember, we got to stick a pi in there. So that's my middle point. Then I'm going to do the same thing between 0 and 1/4. The average, remember, to find average, you add them up, and you divide by 2. So that average is 1/8. We're going to stick a pi in there. So 1/8 pi goes here, or pi over 8. That's going to go all the way up to our amplitude. Then we're going to go between 1/4 plus 1/2 and divide that by 2, which gives us 3 over 8. So our last point is going to be 3 pi over 8, which is here. Goes down. Like that. So remember, if you know 2 points, remember all you're doing is finding the middle. To find the middle, you just find the average. Add them up, divide by how many you have. And in this case, you'll have 2. Alright. So in this one, you've got an amplitude of 2. Then you've got 2 pi over whatever's in front of x. Since nothing is in front of x, it's understood to be a 1, which just simplifies to 2 pi. So your amplitude, your height goes up to 2. So we're going to go down to -2. And we're doing sine, so we've got 0, it ends at 2 pi. Halfway would be pi. So beginning, middle, and end on the x-axis. Then we're going to cut that in half and go up to our amplitude. So halfway would be pi over 2. Halfway would be 3 pi over 2. Okay. Now we're going to look at cosine. Its amplitude is the number in front. Because there's not one, it's understood to be a 1. Then you've got your period, 2 pi over b, which is anything in front of x, so 2. I can simplify that out to just be pi. So remember with cosine, you start high, you end high. So we've got an amplitude of 1 and negative 1. So remember, it starts at our amplitude, and it ends at our amplitude, which in this case ends at pi. Alright, so halfway is going to be pi over 2. Then we're going to go in the middle. It's going to be pi over 4. Then we're going to go in the middle here, which is going to be 3 pi over 4. And those 2 points are on the x-axis. Okay. We've got 1/2 cosine of x. So our amplitude is the one in front, so 1/2. Period is 2 pi over whatever's in front of x, which is just 1. So our period is just 2 pi. So that means our graph is going to stop at 2 pi. And it's cosine, so we're starting high, ending high. So start high, end high. We're going to go halfway, halfway again to get our 5 points. Right, number in front is 1. Then we've got 2 pi over 1/2. And in my calculator, I'm going to put 2 divided by 1/2, which is 4 pi. So remember, with sine, it looks like that. So amplitude is 1. I'm just going to, okay. So we're starting on the x. We're ending on the x at 4 pi. Halfway would be 2 pi. So beginning, middle, and end on the axis, on the x-axis. Then we're going to go up to our amplitude halfway and down to our amplitude halfway. Okay. So this time your amplitude is going to be 1/3 because it's the number in front. Period is 2 pi over whatever's in front of x, which in this case is pi. So here, those pi's are going to cancel. So your amplitude is just 2. So we've got 1/3, negative 1/3. Alright. Then let's see, we've got cosine, so we're going to start high and end high. We're going to start at 1/3. We're going to end at 1/3 at our period of 2. Then we're going to go halfway, so that would be 1. Then we're going to go halfway again, so we've got 1/2. Halfway on this side, 3 halves. We've got all 5 of our points. Okay, last one. Okay, so we've got an amplitude of 2. So 1, 2. Then we've got 2 pi over everything in front of x. So remember, if it's dividing by 3, that's the same thing as multiplying by 1/3. So now we're going to put 2 over 1/3 in our calculator. And we get 6 pi. So if you look at your graph, this time you're not given anything on your graph. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 6 pi is about here. I just counted one at a time. So that means that's pi, 2 pi. Okay. So now we've got sine, so it's gonna. So we're gonna start and end at 6 pi. Halfway is gonna be 3 pi. All right. Now I got to find the middle between 0 and 3. That's going to be right here at 1/2 pi. And that goes all the way up to our amplitude. Then we're going to find the middle between 3 and 6. And that's 4 pi. Oops. It's 9 pi